Wendy Williams, inappropriate questions. In an electrifying episode of The Wendy Williams Show, we delve into the personal life of the stunning Drea Michelle. The scene unfolds as Wendy, with her usual charismatic flair, delves into the subject. So Drea, how many basketball players have you been with? Wendy Williams never fails to ask inappropriate questions. She asked about her romantic relationships with basketball players, a subject that often generates interest and gossip among fans and media alike. However, amid the juicy details and sensationalized headlines, there's an important issue that often gets overlooked: the objectification of women in sports. Drea Michelle, a successful model and entrepreneur, is no stranger to this type of scrutiny. Despite her achievements and talent, she's often defined by her romantic relationships with NBA players. In fact, many people know her more as the ex-fiancée of Orlando Skanderick rather than for her own career accomplishments. Selena Gomez being asked about X. Just a handful of years back, pop sensation Selena Gomez encountered an unanticipated moment during a television interview. The interviewer, showing little regard for her personal boundaries, unexpectedly brought up the topic of Justin Bieber's actions. Selena, taken aback by the impromptu and intrusive query, responded with a silent expression of astonishment. The interview reached an abrupt and awkward conclusion as the broadcast was hastily ended. It's clear that the reporter's approach was far from appropriate, bordering on rudeness. Selena has always been a private person when it comes to her personal life, especially when it involves her famous ex-boyfriend Justin Bieber. In fact, she has often avoided discussing their relationship or the reasons for its end in interviews. Understandably so, as breakups can be difficult and emotional, particularly under the scrutiny of the public eye. Despite this, the media and fans couldn't seem to get enough of their relationship, constantly bombarding Selena with questions and speculations. It's understandable that she may have grown tired of having to constantly address a past relationship instead of her own career and achievements. But can we really blame the reporter for asking about JB? After all, at the time, he was making headlines almost daily with his controversial behavior. It's no secret he had acquired a reputation for being a troublemaker, and it was likely a hot topic in the media. Robert Downey Jr. walked out of an interview. After an incident, Robert publicly addressed the issue, explaining why he walked out of the interview. He stated that he felt uncomfortable with the line of questioning and did not want to continue with the interview under those circumstances. This isn't the first time celebrities have walked out of interviews due to personal or sensitive questions. In fact, it's become quite common for celebrities to refuse to answer uncomfortable questions, especially those that invade their privacy. Kourtney Kardashian's no response. In 2016, a rather unexpected scenario unfolded when Kourtney was taken by surprise during an Australian TV news interview. The anchors blindsided her with the question about her sister Kim Kardashian's Paris robbery incident. For a moment, Kourtney seemed to draw a blank, leaving viewers to speculate that she was possibly tuning into a PR agent for guidance on how to navigate the delicate question. During the interview, Kourtney appeared visibly uncomfortable and hesitant to answer the question. It's understandable why she may have been caught off guard. Her sister Kim had recently experienced a traumatic event, and the media was constantly bombarding her family with questions about it. Despite the awkwardness of the situation, Kourtney handled it with grace by choosing not to comment on her sister's ordeal. Instead, she shifted the focus to her own work and accomplishments. That incident sparked a conversation about the challenges of being a celebrity and having to constantly face invasive questions from the media. It also shed light on the importance of setting boundaries and respecting privacy, especially in sensitive situations. Kourtney's response received praise from many for how she handled the situation with grace and poise, despite the uncomfortable circumstances. It's a testament to her character and resilience as a public figure. But that is not the first time that celebrities have had to face abrupt and difficult questions during interviews. In fact, it's become commonplace for journalists to push boundaries and ask personal or controversial questions in hopes of getting a juicy headline. The Emma Stone prank. In 2014, there was a memorable moment featuring the talented Emma Stone on The Graham Norton Show. Emma was touring the UK to spread the word about her latest film, and Graham Norton, the host, was keen to discuss her well-known affection for the Spice Girls. With Emma already in full-blown fan mode, Graham decided to add a twist. He made her believe that her idols, the Spice Girls, were waiting backstage, a surprise she hadn't anticipated. But just as Emma's excitement soared to the highest point, Graham revealed it was all just a prank. You could see the disappointment on her face when she realized she would not be be meeting the iconic girl group that day. In this hilarious moment, Emma showed her genuine admiration for the Spice Girls and how much their music had influenced her. She even admitted to dressing up as Baby Spice when she was younger. This just goes to show that celebrities are also fans of other celebrities, and it's heartwarming to see them geek out over their idols just like us. Ariana Grande calling out interviewers. You might remember that interview where Ariana didn't hesitate to call out the hosts for asking an overtly sexist question. But that wasn't the only time she stood up for herself. During a conversation about new emoji updates, she mentioned her preference for the unicorn emoji. As soon as she expressed this, one host suggested that the unicorn emoji is only loved by girls and boys, without explaining what the term refers to. In response, Grande quickly advised the Power 106 FM hosts to familiarize themselves with the idea of equality in what can be seen as an awkward situation. She managed to keep herself calm and collected, a reaction many of us would find difficult to maintain in similar situations. You may be wondering how someone like Ariana managed to stay so composed and collected in such a situation. The answer is quite simple. She's always been an advocate for equality and fairness. This incident was just one example of her standing up for what she believes in. In fact, Grande has been vocal about many social justice issues, including sexism, racism, and LGBTQ+ rights. She's used her platform and influence to bring attention to these important issues, often through her music. One of the most notable examples is Grande's song God is a Woman, which sparked conversations about gender roles and empowerment. The music video for this song featured powerful imagery of women taking control and challenging societal norms. It's a clear message from Grande that women are strong and capable and should not be limited by traditional gender roles. Dakota Johnson and Ellen DeGeneres. Let's talk about a certain interview that may have left us thinking that this lady might not be best suited for the media rounds. Fast forward to 2019 when Dakota had a little tete-a-tete with Ellen DeGeneres. It seems there was a bit of a mix-up over a birthday invite. Upon receiving a playful jab from Ellen hinting that she was left off the guest list for Dakota's 30th bash, Dakota clapped back, "Actually, that's not true, Ellen. I did send you an invite, but you were a no-show." The conversation took another turn with Dakota suggesting that Ellen might not be a fan of hers. Talk about a cringe moment. While the conversation may have started off lighthearted, it quickly took a turn towards tension when Dakota revealed that Ellen had missed her birthday party. This exchange sparked speculation among fans and media outlets about a potential feud between the two stars. After all, why would Ellen miss such an important occasion for someone she supposedly didn't like? However, both Dakota and Ellen quickly put these rumors to rest. In a later interview, Dakota clarified that there was no bad blood between them and that the missed invitation was simply a mistake. Justin Timberlake being asked why he wants to act. Next up, an interesting moment from the press junket of Friends with Benefits, a film featuring Justin Timberlake. When a Russian reporter questioned the rationale behind Justin's transition from singing to acting, Mila stunned everyone by responding swiftly and cleverly in Russian. She retorted, "So what would you have him do instead?" Mila Kunis's reply was an apt slap down to the journalist's narrow perspective. Speaking in fluent Russian, she defended her co-star, subtly conveying that talent is not confined to a singular career path. Her retort not only showed her quick wit and loyalty to her fellow actor, but also highlighted her cultural versatility. This incident serves as a reminder that artists should be encouraged to explore their full range of talents and capabilities rather than being pigeonholed into specific roles or professions. It also showcased Mila Kunis's linguistic abilities and her ability to think on her feet, making her a multidimensional and impressive individual in the entertainment industry. And Tom Hardy gets defensive. In 2015, during a promotional tour for the movie Legend, actor Tom Hardy found himself in a rather uncomfortable encounter with a reporter. The reporter, trying to be subtle, decided to probe into Hardy's personal life, specifically his sexuality. However, Hardy was quick to discern the intent behind the question. Addressing the reporter head-on, Hardy inquired, "Are you asking me about my sexuality?" When the reporter confirmed, Hardy, visibly displeased, retorted, "Why? Why?" Hardy's response showcases his resistance to being defined by a single aspect of his identity. In today's society, individuals are often subjected to labels and stereotypes based on their race, gender, sexual orientation, and other aspects of their identities. This can be seen in the media, where celebrities face constant scrutiny and pressure to conform to societal norms and expectations. Hardy's reaction to the reporter's question highlights the importance of not reducing someone to a single aspect of their identity. Each person is complex and multifaceted, and it's unfair to place them in a box based on one characteristic. Samuel L. Jackson mistaken for Lawrence Fishburne. The pinnacle of awkward moments surely has to be an interviewer getting the identities of their interviewees wrong. And this situation occurred even before the interview had properly begun. The ever-memorable Samuel L. Jackson didn't hesitate to correct this reporter when he mistakenly identified him as Lawrence Fishburne. At first, Jackson played along, asking the interviewer to clarify which commercial he was referring to. Then he allowed a rather uncomfortable silence to prevail before finally revealing it was actually Lawrence Fishburne who starred in the commercial. This was a cringeworthy moment indeed. The interview incident mistaking Samuel for Lawrence serves as a reminder to always do proper research and make sure you have the correct information before interviewing someone. Hello. Not only did that mistake cause an awkward moment, but it also showed a lack of professionalism on the part of the interviewer.
Number 10. Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy is not just the man behind the atomic bomb and the silver medal winner of the Barbie vs. Oppenheimer race. He is also the king of shade. A TikTok that has now gone viral shows a very awkward moment from 2017 during the red carpet premiere of his film Dunkirk in London. This was before the royal wedding, before any of the public family drama really came to light, so the prince and his fiancée attended the screening as royals. During a brief interaction between Cillian and Harry, everything seems to be normal. They shake hands and smile, but the moment that Harry walks to the next person, Cillian just glares like he's trying to make Harry's head explode with his mind. While there has never been a confirmation whether there is some kind of feud between these two behind the scenes, according to several co-stars, that was the first and last time these two spoke that night. There's been some speculation from fans that claim to read lips that the interaction involved Cillian correcting the prince, who wrongfully called him British when he is in fact Irish. Either that or he just has what many say is resting get me out of here now face. And that adds up. Number 9. Taylor Swift. This is an instance where Harry and Meghan were snubbed simultaneously. Taylor reportedly declined to be a guest on Meghan Markle's now cancelled podcast on Spotify. Meghan wished to get Taylor involved in an interview with herself and Harry, even sending a handwritten invitation to her front door. According to her publicist, the invite was declined due to Taylor wishing to steer clear of anything that had to do with royal or political issues, which is a very smart move on her part. Wouldn't want to accidentally get stuck on the wrong side of that argument. When she's asked about the situation by fans or on a live tour, she claims that the entire thing was blown out of proportions and that Harry and Meghan should clear things up on their end as soon as possible. This was around the same time that the couple were facing issues with getting their documentary released by Netflix, as well as the cancellation of her podcast. So, if you're attending Taylor's Era tour at any point, bring in a sign that says, "Why do you hate Meghan?" See what happens. Number 8. Elton John. Elton is one of the biggest names in pop rock history, so it's no surprise that he likes to throw a party or two with some A-list buddies. This year, he decided to throw an Oscars after party at his home after the ceremony, where the prince would normally be in attendance or at least stop by to say hi. In fact, up until this past year, the two were quite close, reportedly spending a lot of free time together. But something changed when he left the family. Things started to slowly grow sour and a rift began to split between them. This year, it has not been confirmed why Prince Harry and Meghan were not at the party, but many believe that they snubbed Elton and denied his invite to his face. According to some of the celebrities in attendance, the couple had been deemed nobodies for missing the event, with many claiming that it was actually Elton who told them not to come. Regardless of what happened, the Oscars red carpet was a little bit gloomy this year. Number 7. Katy Perry. When Harry decided to attend the King's coronation this year, he didn't know that he'd be running into an old nemesis, Katy Perry. Well, actually, they're not nemesis. They don't hate each other. It turns out Katy used to have a crush on Harry. While making an appearance on the Graham Norton show in 2012, another guest commented that Prince Harry loved the ladies, and Katy said she'd be open to it before flashing a big ol' smile. It seemed that the news got back to Harry though when it was announced that Katy would be one of the many acts performing at the coronation concert. Prince Harry made it his mission to fly home and get out of there as soon as possible. Well, it probably wasn't just because of that, but hey, big part for sure. Katy didn't even get a chance to shake his hand before he left, a moment she may never see in her lifetime. Number 6. Steven Spielberg. When Harry and Meghan moved to California, things were supposed to be better. More sun, more fun, and more A-list friends. But it turns out that most of Hollywood is not in the mood for a new buddy, including the director of E.T. and Jaws, Steven Spielberg. According to inside sources, Steven and Harry are actually neighbors in California. When they first moved in, Harry and Meghan had apparently went over just to say hello, but they were met with a very cold shoulder from Steve. According to several inside sources, Steven was just one of several celebrities on that block who were warned about getting too close to the Duke and Duchess. Apparently, the isolation comes from many celebrities not wanting to learn any secret information that may be used against them in the future. Imagine telling Steven Spielberg a secret so big he has to testify about it in court. That would be both embarrassing and fun. Unfortunately for these two, if they need to borrow a cup of sugar, they'll need to go to a store like the rest of the world. I don't know, does anybody actually share ingredients anymore? Number 5. Oprah Winfrey. Not only did Oprah have one of the most popular talk shows shows of all time, but she's also had a long history with the royal family. This past February, while celebrating the 25th anniversary of the makeup brand Anastasia Beverly Hills and Oprah's 69th birthday, many A-list stars were in attendance, like J-Lo, Kim Kardashian, and Sharon Stone. But two stars that were not in attendance were Harry and Meghan. This was odd considering that Oprah was the woman that they decided to sit down with in 2021 for an explosive interview. Many have speculated that the reason they were never invited was despite using Oprah's show as a launching pad for their story, but that they were going with tell-all memoirs and Netflix documentaries instead. Oprah had given them a healthy and controlled outlet to tell their story, but they instead chose to ignore her and go their own way. Oprah has never confirmed the shade that looms between herself and Harry, but not even inviting Harry and Meghan to your birthday bash? That's just a little insulting. Number 4. Piers Morgan. Piers is a man who is drenched in controversy himself for the most part. A few years ago, he was forced to walk away from a long-time hosting gig for spouting some legitimate nonsense that I will not go too deep into, or we might not be able to cover the prince. Following his split from Good Morning Britain, Piers started his own talk show called Piers Morgan Uncensored, which is exactly what it sounds like. During a segment earlier this year, Piers was commenting on Prince Harry attending the King's coronation, roasting him for even thinking about attending the event after spending the last 2 years calling them out in the media and online. He got into a very heated rant about Camilla being the best royal while calling Harry a hypocritical rat bag. This is one of those moments that did not take place on the red carpet, but that's just because people seem to be too shy to say these things to his face. Number 3. Noel Gallagher. The former Oasis frontman has had a long and rocky history with the royal family and his own. In 2021, while Prince Harry and his wife were attempting to craft their story into a Netflix documentary, this incident may not have taken on the red carpet, but we're including it on this list because it directly impacted the press tour for that project. While Harry was promoting his new project, Noel decided to go online and compare the situation between Harry and William to himself and his brother Liam, then going on to claim that Harry was a snowflake. He continued by claiming that Harry should just, keep his mouth shut from now on and call off this silly little press BS. Prince Harry, in true Harry fashion, never responded to the comments. Instead, Noel continued to rant over and over again, but the news story became a viral sensation. Unfortunately for Noel, the whole Harry sucks thing only made people want to watch the documentary more. Number 2. Meghan Markle. Another snub that was not on the red carpet per se, but this one is super brutal and it was caught on live TV, so let's chat about it. The Prince and Meghan were watching a Lakers game from a corporate box. They were joined by other A-listers that night like Adam Sandler and Kim Kardashian. The snub from Meghan came when the infamous kiss cam made its way up to the skybox. It takes a moment for them to realize what's going on, but when Harry goes in for a little smoochy woochy, Meghan rejects him and laughs the entire thing off. Harry is visibly confused before the camera cuts to the next couple. This awkward moment made many people question why Meghan's instinctual reaction was to giggle and push him away. Like, we understand not wanting to do any PDA on camera, but it's the kiss cam. You gotta do it. It's the law. And at number 1, Netflix. Taking the top spot on our list is the streaming giant Netflix. Why? Well, because they were a part of one of the most brutal snubs in Harry's professional career as a star. A documentary centered on Meghan and Harry was filmed, edited, and set to be released in December of last year. Unfortunately, Netflix was forced to put that project on ice after some negative comments came to light against the documentary and the show The Crown. The now King Charles was being portrayed poorly on the series, causing major backlash from the royal family. Harry and Meghan received even more backlash following the announcement that a recreation of Diana's infamous crash would be filmed for the documentary. So far, the documentary has yet to be released on Netflix, as they have claimed that it's not on their priority list at the moment. There are some behind-the-scenes issues preventing a release that may never be resolved, meaning somewhere out there is footage of the royal family doing some shady stuff that we may never see. Oh well, if you want to see them doing some shady stuff, just Google it. There's plenty to choose from. Number 10. Mike Tyson. So I had trouble landing on just one interview to mention when it comes to this man. He is someone who seems to just bounce back after every single heinous thing he's done, so we're gonna run through a few of them. The first time Mike really hurt his career was in the 80s, and it wasn't even something he said. He was doing an interview with his then girlfriend Robin Gibbs. When the topic of Mike's behavior came up, she said herself that Mike had an extremely volatile temper. Recent reports had also surfaced of Mike getting loud and physical with Robin, something she seemingly confirmed, while Mike just stared at the interviewer the entire time, giving him an evil look. Now, that was one of the first little notches on his belt. That wasn't really a meltdown. As the years went by, more and more controversies came to light, and during a press tour for his latest bout in the early 2000s, he lashed out at a fan in the crowd, hurling a slew of insults and calling them the British word for cancer sticks. It starts with an F and it rhymes with maggot. The clip became viral overnight and placed his career in jeopardy, but he finally drove that nail into the coffin on CP24's Breakfast Television in 2014. After somehow maintaining enough relevance to get a one-man show, Mike was sitting down with host Nathan Downer to promote when the interview took a hard left and went from "so, what's the show about?" to "so, should you even be allowed on stage, you monster?" That's not what he actually said, but apparently that's what Mike Tyson heard, because he stopped answering questions and would instead hurl sarcastic insults. The F word is once again his favorite and just throws it at him. I don't know if you've noticed, but Mike hasn't been on the news much since then, and probably for a good reason. Number 9. Paula Abdul. Q13 Fox News. In 2012, famous judge and British bad boy Simon Cowell decided to fire his fellow X Factor judge after she went on Fox News and made herself sound like a little bit of a fool. During an interview with Q13, things started out a little rocky thanks to some audio issues causing Paula to hear a station in Texas instead of their own. When they eventually got everything up and running, Paula was just as confusing as she was with the original issues. The interviewers were trying to ask her about her visit to Seattle, where Simon claims that the worst singers that he has ever encountered dwell. Instead of defending the city, Paula doubled down and agreed with Simon. It's not the statement though that landed her in the hot seat, it was actually just the way that she was speaking. Paula had always been a little bit animated in her life, using arms a lot when speaking to people, but she was particularly slurry and seemed like she was under the influence of something. This was just one of several interviews where Paula is noticeably woozy. Simon Cowell has actually claimed the only reason she was invited to host on the X Factor in the first place was to see if she would bring in the American Idol viewers, and when that didn't pan out, he realized the right move to make was to let her go because she's not great on television. Of course, Paula was mad about this and confronted Simon several times, only making that meltdown bigger and bigger. Number 8. Robert Downey Jr. Being a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe means a ton of interviews. Now, Robert had the fortune of playing Iron Man for 10 years, being featured in 11 movies. While doing press for his second round with the Avengers in 2015, he had the misfortune of speaking with a legendarily terrible interviewer, Christian Guru Murphy, on Channel 4. Now, I've talked about this guy in other videos for making Quentin Tarantino walk out of an interview, and he is making a return for something pretty similar. The interview is uncomfortable from the very beginning. Christian stumbles through his questions as quickly as he can, with Robert doing his best just to keep things smooth. Instead of asking questions about the movie though, Christian decided to probe Robert about his life in prison and with substance control issues. Now, at first, he's okay and answers the questions, but then Christian brings up his dad and asks if he feels that he escaped his dark past. Robert is visibly anxious and begins breathing pretty heavy to keep himself calm. He asks what they were doing there, and then the team said goodbye. He stood up and walked out of the room, and he said that Christian seemed nice, but things were getting just a little bit too Diane Sawyer for his taste. This was one of the most uncomfortable interview moments in Robert's career, and it's not even close to the worst one for Christian. Number 7. Sofia Vergara. Fans of the show Modern Family will recognize Sofia as Gloria, aka Manny's mom, who is just absolutely hilarious and heartwarming at the same time, even outside of Modern Family. Now, while speaking with Ellen in 2017 about her career and some new projects coming up, Ellen decided to play a game called English Word of the Day. Claiming to be learning Spanish with one word a day, she wished to teach Sofia one as well. Before the segment, Sofia is roasting Ellen for her dislike of cotton, but when Ellen asks if she wants to learn the English word with her, Sofia scoffs and is visibly annoyed, claiming that she speaks English very well. Ellen gives her the word flabbergasted and asks her to define what it means. Not only does she pronounce it correctly the first time, but she knew exactly what it meant. Ellen follows it up with discombobulated, which left Sofia confused and thinking pretty hard. Now, she butchered the word, and while she seemed to be taking things in stride, it turns out Sofia was so frustrated with participating in this game, as she is a bit self-conscious when it comes to her accent. A lot of people consider the segment to be a little bit racist and more cringe-inducing than fun. I've seen the clip. That's accurate. Number 6, Joaquin Phoenix. We understand a dedication to your craft, and Joaquin Phoenix is just a prime example. This dude's acting career has been going steady since he first appeared in the 1989 comedy Parenthood when he was in his teens. Now, while he is seen as one of the greatest actors in recent history, his reputation on set was a little tarnished thanks to a freak out while filming the 2018 solo flick Joker. He appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live to promote the shoot when Jimmy plays a behind-the-scenes clip of Joaquin getting loud and angry at a man named Larry, and the constant whispering behind the cameras before dropping a few F-bombs and storming off this set. When the cameras came back to the studio, Joaquin was frozen in shock and clearly not expecting that clip to ever see the light of day. He is not having a good time. He explained that Larry was a cinematographer who teased Joaquin off set earlier in the day, calling him a diva and referring to him as Cher. In fact, if you're watching the clip and during the outbursts, you can actually hear him say, "You want to call me Cher? How is that an insult?" He then explained that there is a lot of pressure on set, especially in a closed space, like the apartment from the scene that they were filming. He apologized to the audience for having to see him behave like that, which, was met with applause. Because at the end of the day, he's a performer and no harm came from the outburst or the meltdown, and honestly, if Larry's cool with it, so are we. Number 5, Nicolas Cage. The most unhinged man in Hollywood history. One of the few people who somehow managed to star in billions of movies, but has barely seen or kept a cent of that money. During a press junket in 1990, Nick went on a talk show called Wogan to discuss his latest project, Wild at Heart. When the host Terry Wogan announced Nick Cage, he entered with karate kicks, a front flip, somersault. He threw wads of cash at the audience because, hey, he's Nick Cage, why not? And when he finally sat down, moments before the interview actually began, he asked if he could take his jacket off. He proceeds to take his jacket off and the shirt underneath of it, because if people thought Nick Cage was all together, they were proven wrong during this interview. Despite the content being relatively tamed, the entire time you can just see sweat glistening off of Nick's chest, because guess what? Wearing a leather jacket on your bare chest is beyond uncomfortable, especially when there are lights aimed at you. Now sure, it might look cool until you take it off and you just have a heat rash. Nick's always been unhinged, but this meltdown during this interview was truly unique. His behavior in the 90s was apparent and well documented thanks to him literally being in like 2 movies a year. Number 4, Christian Bale. Christian is a very versatile actor, physically and of course skill-wise. He's able to shrink and grow his physique seemingly at will. He's played everything from a skinny substance addict to Batman in 2008. Christian starred in the 3rd film of the Terminator franchise, Terminator Salvation, and while he was filming a scene, director of photography Shane Holbert apparently just moved into Christian's eyesight, and this caused Christian to snap out of character and into defense mode. The now infamous audio clip of Christian screaming at Shane to make matters worse, anyone trying to calm Christian down were met with an equally swift verbal lashing. While the cinematographer was just checking a light to make sure that it was in the right place, like doing his job, Bale made it his mission to share his intense feelings with the entire crew. When the audio leaked, Bale apologized for his actions and told the world to praise the crew for their work. Now while the movie turned out okay visually speaking, the project as a whole is remembered as a terrible Terminator movie, and he gets pretty uncomfortable when he talks about it on stage. Number 3, Paris Hilton. Paris is the originator of the phrase famous for being famous, because this woman made headlines many times over the years for a little bit of everything. In 2011, Paris appeared on ABC to discuss her career, her personal life, and the recent situations she had been dealing with involving stalkers. During the interview, she revealed a few things about her life that had previously been speculated, like the fact that she used a higher-pitched baby voice on the show Simple Life, but had a much deeper and serious tone in real life. But the conversation eventually ventures into uncharted waters. The interviewer asked Paris if she felt that her former friend and protege, Kim Kardashian, had overshadowed her in the eyes of the media. Paris says nothing, looks to her publicist, and goes to stand up. They almost wrapped the interview entirely, but eventually things simmered down and they were able to clear up the air. However, the moment stuck with fans of Hilton immediately and begged the question, why is she so uncomfortable talking about this? And it's because it's true. Well, it turns out the world answered the question for her, because Kim Kardashian's show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, made it big, and Paris Hilton's show was cancelled after 1 season. So, there you go. Number 2, Tom Cruise. Matt Lauer is not just a terrible person who turned out to be a creepy creepo. He was once a popular talk show host in the early 2000s. During an interview with Tom Cruise in 2005, the topic of his scientific beliefs came up that quickly sent Tom into a rant about psychiatry, and somehow the topic got into Ritalin and pseudosciences. I don't know, Tom yelled at Matt about knowing more than him about psychiatry, like he had some inside information that he was secretly a therapist, who knows. The interview came at the height of Tom's pretty public descent into chaotic badness, becoming very famous for his outlandish beliefs and his wish to push them onto other people. The highlight of the interview came when Cruise was asked about his previous criticisms of Brooke Shields taking anti-sad time pills, to which he responded by calling her a glib. I looked up the definition of that word and it means fluent and voluble, but insincere and shallow. But this was only one of the several interviews from 2005 that I wanted to discuss today, especially with Tom Cruise. Good lord, that was a rough year for him. When he was with Katie Holmes, he was a nutcase. Just ask Oprah. I mean, ever since the mid-2000s, his career has mainly been Mission Impossible, with only a few small roles to fill the gaps here and there, not the Hollywood superstar that he was aiming to be. And at number 1, my favorite entry, Bobcat Goldthwait. Allow me to start the entry by doing an impression of Bobcat. Thank you. Bobcat may not be much of an actor these days, but in the 80s and 90s, this man was dominating the film and comedy scene. His zany brand of over-the-top, high-energy performance was so well received by any and all who saw him. I can still hear his voice echoing in my head whenever I think of Police Academy. In 1994, comedian Arsenio Hall invited his longtime buddy Bobcat onto his talk show, which unfortunately was in its final days on the air. When he heard the cancellation, Bobcat decided to send a message to the big brains that made the decision, because he spray painted the word Paramount on the wall behind him, throws furniture around, breaks TV screens, all the while Arsenio is just sitting back and laughing. When they returned from commercial, the set was in ruins, and despite that, Arsenio joked that he was like, the worst part is I have to pretend like I'm mad at him. Joke's on him, that wasn't the only talk show meltdown he partook in. A few years after this, Bobcat set a chair on fire on the Jay Leno show for no reason, just for fun. Like he was standing there just going, fire! He was fined over $3,000 and made to replace the chair. Oh, and in case you haven't noticed, he hasn't been asked to be on any talk shows recently. Number 10, Megan Fox. Megan has been featured in several films over the years, but it was an interview about her time working with Michael Bay on the set of the Transformers movies that canceled her career for good. The original live-action Transformers movie came out in 2007 and co-starred Megan and Shia LaBeouf in the leading roles. It was a fun movie on screen, but behind the scenes there was a ton of tension on set. According to Megan, who had previously worked with Michael on Bad Boys 2, working for Michael was like working for Schmittler. Fun fact, if you add sh to someone's name, you can say it online. Loophole. Of course, Michael didn't appreciate being compared to, you know, one of the worst men in human history, so many speculated that her being left out of third Transformers movie may have had something to do with behind-the-scenes drama. She went on to call him bland and claimed that he had no personality or social skills of any kind. Like, hey Megan, that's just a little bit harsh. It's a little personal. When the comments were made public, her career began to slowly suffer. Not only was she written out of the Transformers series, but she was forced to make a public apology and actually retract her statements following the massive slew of backlash from fans. She took a few years off, but Michael himself later acknowledged the misstep on Megan's part and not only accepted the retraction, but the pair were able to patch things up and work together on the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies from 2014. Yay! Number 9, Cara Delevingne. Cara is a gifted actor and overall seems like a solid human being. So much like the rest of us, she gets tired and annoyed from time to time. Unfortunately, that feeling took place on live TV while promoting her new movie, Paper Towns. While making an appearance on the early morning show, Good Day Sacramento, the interview did not get off to a great start. The program's anchor called her Carla, and she then spent the next few minutes trying to get info out of Cara, but was failing miserably. Falling deep into the anchor role, she pulled out the old, hey, wow, that's amazing. Hey, listen, Carla, did you read the book that this thing's based on, or did you even have time to read because you're so busy? She was having none of that. She was very sarcastic with each answer to the fairly generic questions. Do you relate to the character? What was your favorite moment? Blah, blah, blah. It was then that a third anchor abruptly popped in and asked Cara if she was exhausted, as she seemed a bit more excited to speak about the project a few weeks prior in London. She giggled and said, no, I'm fine. Apparently the premiere of the film was the night before, which she claimed to feel like the end of an era. But the anchors do not know when to quit. In fact, one of the anchors then suggested suggested that she may be irritated, or maybe it was just them. They then cut the interview short and told her to take a nap and get a Red Bull. She can be heard saying, "Oh my god, too far," before the news anchor screeches over her and shuts her down. According to Cara, there was really no bad blood. She was just sick of answering the same questions over and over again. Following the interview, the man who popped up and gave his 2 cents was fired for causing such a tense situation on live TV. Number 8. Mike Tyson. Now, I had trouble landing on just one interview to mention when it comes to Mike. He's someone who seems to bounce back even after the most heinous of controversies, so we're just gonna run down through a few good ones. The first time Mike really hurt his career was in the late 80s, and it wasn't even something that he said. He was doing an interview with his then girlfriend Robin Gibbs when the topic of Mike's behavior came up. She said herself that Mike had an extremely volatile temper, and recently reports had surfaced of Mike getting loud and physical with her. Something she seemingly confirmed while Mike was just staring the interviewer down the entire time. Very intense. That was the first little notch on his belt, but as the years went by, more and more controversy came to light. During a press tour for his latest bout in the early 2000s, he lashed out at a fan in the crowd, hurling a slew of insults at him and calling them the British word for cancer sticks. It starts with an F and it rhymes with maggot. The clip became viral overnight and placed his career even further into jeopardy than it already was. But he finally drove the nail into the coffin on CP24 breakfast television in 2014. After somehow maintaining enough relevance to get a one-man show, Mike was sitting down with host Nathan Downer to promote when the interview took a hard left and went from, "So, what's the show about?" to, "So, should you even be allowed on stage, you monster?" That's not what he actually said, but that's what Mike heard. He stopped answering the questions honestly, and he would instead hurl insults sarcastically. The F word is once again his favorite. I don't know if you've noticed, but Mike hasn't been on the news much since that day, and for very good reasons. Number 7. Rachel Zegler. Rachel Zegler's comments about the upcoming live-action Snow White remake could have a huge impact on ticket sales, according to branding experts. The 22-year-old actress has received plenty of backlash after she admitted that she hated the original 1937 movie and branded the storyline weird, while referring to the Prince character as just a straight-up stalker. The backlash occurred after several videos of Rachel speaking negatively about the original film in various interviews last year resurfaced online, where she talked about her version of the character. She said she's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. While Disney may just be trying to modernize the classic, the comments were causing her to be labeled a fake feminist, with some critics accusing Rachel of gaslighting, and one marketing consultant has warned that Disney will need to be careful on how they have portrayed Snow White. Snow White has already been suffering from backlash well before Rachel made her comments. Peter Dinklage spoke out about Disney not using dwarf actors for the new film, instead opting to use heavy CGI on Hollywood elites. Rachel's role as Snow White is currently up in the air, because while the film is set to be released in March of next year, the writer's strike may be the exact situation that the studio needs to recast and rewrite its oldest character. Number 6. Liam Neeson. Liam may have spent a long time as a dramatic action star, but his most dramatic moment yet came during an interview published by The Independent. He was promoting his new film, Cold Pursuit, which follows his character seeking retribution after his son is slain. When he was asked how his character turns to anger, he replied by telling them something primal kicks in when someone close to you is a victim of violence. He then shared a true story about a close friend of his admitting to a physical altercation with another man a few years prior. When he heard the news, he said something took over him. When he asked her if she knew what his name was, she said no, but she knew what color his skin was. After using some very offensive language to describe this man, Liam then admitted to spending the next week carrying around a small baton and praying that, quote, a random black man would cross his path. The article began circulating fast, and Liam received a tidal wave of backlash. Since 2019, he has starred in a few films, but nothing as high budget or universally liked as his previous roles. Number 5. Katherine Heigl. Kathy was riding high back in 2007. The former Grey's Anatomy star not only won an Emmy for Best Supporting Actress in a Dramatic Series, but she also began transitioning into the big screen with the success of her first feature comedy, Knocked Up, alongside comedy legend Seth Rogen. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, her rise to the top quickly became a free fall into a volcano following an ill-fated Vanity Fair interview the following January. In the interview, Catherine made a move that still has people scratching their heads to this day. She openly bashed the film that made her famous, claiming that it painted women as shrew, humorless, and uptight, while also placing blame on Seth for writing the men as lovable, goofy, fun guys. The film still sits at an impressive 89% on Rotten Tomatoes because while she may claim that the project was problematic, the final product was a fun love story filled with some pretty solid jokes, and performances, and a great story. Seth felt betrayed by the comments as they never had a fight on set, and it never seemed like she was uncomfortable at any point. These comments, combined with some negativity towards her Grey's Anatomy writers, caused her agents to drop her as a client, and her time in Hollywood slowly came to a halt. These days she stars in the CBS comedy Our House, but it's looking like she may never return to the big screen. Number 4. Brie Larson. Brie was announced as the newest member of the Marvel Universe in 2019, starring in the film Captain Marvel as the titular superhero. At first, people were pretty excited to see what Marvel would do with this property. Captain Marvel is, after all, one of the original cosmic heroes in comic book canon, and I know I'm a nerd, leave me alone. However, when the movie was actually released, fans were pretty upset with Brie's performance. According to them, she was stale and seemed bored from start to finish. When asked about the online hate at the D23 red carpet in 2022, Brie said she's not sure if she's going to continue to play the character beyond her upcoming Captain Marvel sequel, The Marvels. She's aware of all the hate surrounding her character and defends that role by telling people that's how she was told to play the role. But it's also Brie Larson. She's always been stiff, but that's kind of part of why it's funny. Go watch Scott Pilgrim, you ninnies! Overall, she doesn't sound as terrible as some of the other entries on this list, but the way she has responded to interviewers in the past has pegged her as a Miss Marvel meanie. Number 3. Paula Abdul. In 2012, famous judge and British bad boy Simon Cowell decided to fire his fellow X Factor judge after she went on Fox News and made herself sound just a little bit like a fool. During an interview with Q13, things start out a little rocky thanks to some audio issues causing Paula to hear a station in Texas instead of the one that she was trying to talk to. When they eventually got everything up and running, Paula was just as confusing as she was with the original audio issue. The interviewers were trying to ask her about her visit to Seattle, where Simon claimed that the worst singers he has ever encountered dwell. But instead of defending the city, Paula doubled down and agreed with Simon. But it's not the statement though that landed her in the hot seat, it was the way she was speaking. Paula had always been a little bit animated in her life, using her arms a lot when speaking to people, but she was particularly slurry and she seemed like she was under the influence of something. This was just one of several interviews where Paula was noticeably woozy. Simon's actually claimed that the only reason she was invited to host on the X Factor in the first place was to see that if she would bring in the American Idol viewers. When that didn't pan out, he realized that the right move to make was just to let her go and move on to greener pastures. Of course, Paula was mad about this and confronted Simon several times, only digging herself further and further into that hole. Number 2. Tom Cruise. Matt Lauer is not just a terrible man who turned out to be a creepy creepo. He was once a popular talk show host in the early 2000s. During an interview with Tom Cruise in 2005, the topic of his scientific beliefs came up that quickly sent Tom into a rant about psychiatry. Somehow the topic got into Ritalin and pseudosciences. I don't know. Tom yelled at Matt about knowing more than him about psychiatry. Like he had some inside information that he was secretly a therapist or something. The interview came at the height of Tom's very public descent into chaotic badness, becoming very famous for his outlandish beliefs and his wish to push them onto other people. The highlight of the interview came when Cruise was asked about his previous criticism of Brooke Shields taking anti-sad time pills, to which he responded by calling her a glib. And I looked up the definition. That means fluent and voluble, but insecure and shallow. This was only one of several interviews from 2005 that we could discuss today. When he was with Katie Holmes, he was a bit of a nutcase. Just ask Oprah Winfrey. Ever since the mid-2000s, Tom's career has been mainly in the Mission Impossible movies, with only a few small roles to fill the gaps here and there. Not the Hollywood superstar that he was aiming to be. And at number 1, Lance Armstrong. 7-time Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong has gone down in history as a man who was unable to ride a bike without his chemical training wheels. In an interview with Oprah Winfrey in 2013, Lance was brought on to discuss the allegations floating around regarding his status status as a Tour de France winner. Several sources claimed that Lance had taken performance-enhancing substances to win each of his races, as well as a type of transfusion involving the red life juice that flows inside all of us. Armstrong went on air and fessed up to every single thing that they were claiming he had done. However, he did deny the notion that he was some kind of a mastermind who would control his teammates and force them to join in his extracurricular activities. But amidst his admission of guilt, say that 10 times fast, there was a moment where he tried to pin the situation on his battle with cancer. He wraps it up by saying that he should have tried harder to cancel the culture rather than create more of a problem. He was stripped of all 7 Tour de France titles, and he has since lived in exile among the cycling world. Number 10, Hugh Grant. In 2023, the world was gifted with an awkward interview between model Ashley Graham and Dungeons & Dragons star Hugh Grant. Ashley was trying her best to give a good interview and ask Hugh the hard-hitting questions. Like, who was he wearing? Was he excited to be there? Did he hope anyone won? You know, the generic questions they tell you to ask on day one. Hugh was not budging to the point where she just kinda gave up and let him loose. One of her last questions to Hugh was regarding his cameo in the Netflix film Glass Onion, which he says was barely a full day on set. The incident sparked a ton of backlash, mainly aimed at Hugh for making Ashley's job more and more difficult because he wasn't even responding to that first round of questioning. But then the narrative switched to, why wasn't she asking him better questions? ABC decided that the hosting gig was going to go to somebody else next year, and it's looking like she won't be making any more interview appearances anytime soon. Number 9, Rachel Zegler. Rachel Zegler's comments about the upcoming live-action Snow White movie could have a huge impact on ticket sales, according to branding experts. The 22-year-old actress has received plenty of backlash after she admitted that she hated the original 1937 movie and branded the storyline as weird, while referring to the Prince character as a stalker. Not wrong. The backlash occurred after several videos of Rachel speaking negatively about the original film in various interviews last year that resurfaced online, where she talked about her version of this character, saying that she's not going to be saved by a prince and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. While Disney may just be trying to modernize the classic, these comments were causing her to be labeled as a fake feminist. Some critics accused Rachel of gaslighting, and one marketing consultant has warned that Disney will need to be careful with how they've portrayed Snow White. Snow White has already been suffering from backlash well before Rachel made her comments. Peter Dinklage spoke out about Disney not using true dwarf actors for the new film and instead opting to use heavy CGI on Hollywood elites. Rachel's role as Snow White is in the air as of filming, because while this film is set to release in March, the writers and actors strike set production back, so who knows, maybe they recasted her in the background while we weren't paying attention. Number 8, Adam Driver. Adam Driver is an incredible actor, and I personally got to see him perform for the first time in a little rom-com alongside Daniel Radcliffe called The F Word. If you ever seen that, check it out, it's a great movie. And then I saw Star Wars. Okay, don't worry, I know that he's Kylo Ren. This year, Adam had the chance to play one of the creator of one of the fastest and most recognizable car brands in the entire world, Enzo Ferrari of Ferrari Cars. The film has been receiving some pretty solid reviews, following in the shadows of films like Ford v Ferrari from a couple of years back. It seems like we might get a cinematic universe of stories behind popular car brands. There's a DeLorean movie, there's this movie. They should just make a movie about Subarus next. My parents love Subarus, they're great cars. While doing press for the film, Adam was involved in a Q&A that resulted in one of the best Adam Driver clips to ever exist. A man in the audience asks Adam how he feels about stunt racing scenes, as they are pretty intense, harsh, and honestly, in their opinion, cheesy. Cheesy? Adam doesn't like that word. He sips his water, and with very little hesitation, he says, I don't know, F you. Next question. The clip became viral very fast, and people are actually praising Adam for his response. People at these events are given a rare chance to speak with actors, directors, and everything in between, so when someone takes that precious time just to tell you how they feel about something and to see if you agree, it's just a waste of time. Number 7, Pedro Pascal. Pedro is another treasure in this world. Not only has his energy and genuine personality been showcased in his TV and film roles, but he's become one of the most recognizable faces in meme culture. He's also been involved in projects from every genre: comedy, action, horror, and now live-action video game adaptations thanks to the Last of Us series. Earlier this year, he was attending the premiere of Season 3 of The Mandalorian, and an interviewer stopped him on the red carpet and asked if he might might like to read some thirst tweets to the camera. This was unprompted and never confirmed to be okay with Pedro beforehand, before he was put on camera. Pedro took the piece of paper that he was handed. It contained the tweets. He giggled, took a moment to read it over, and with a big smile on his face just gave them a sincere no, and then called the comments too dirty to read. But being the man that he is, he told them that they were doing a great job and that those were some thirsty tweets. He was not insulted by this interaction at all, and if anything, it's just another clip that showcases how much of a gem this man really is. Number 6, Dax Shepard. In September of this year, an individual named Jonathan Van Ness, or JVN, made an appearance on Dax's podcast, Armchair Experts. JVN rose to fame after appearing on the series Queer Eye and has continued to work in several sections of the beauty and fashion industry for years. While speaking with Dax, known best as a comedic actor from movies like Employee of the Month and Idiocracy, he actually ended up bringing JVN to tears thanks to his comments towards the concept of transitioning and gender-affirming care. During the conversation, Dax wished to debate both sides, to which JVN responded with several well-researched points. Dax's views have always been questioned, as they seem to be based in misinformation and are actually anti-trans in general. Towards the end of the conversation, and after JVN basically had to defend their beliefs over and over again, Dax apologized and acknowledged that he should not have put JVN in that position. Jay expresses their exhaustion of having to justify these comments and fight for the rights of younger people who are transitioning. JVN is just very passionate about youth, especially being accepted and involved in as many activities and interests as possible in their lives. Dax has been called out for his comments when the entire point of the podcast was to discuss JVN's own podcast, so you might say he went a little off topic. Number 5, Tony Danza. Modern audiences may not know much about Tony Danza, but if you're a fan of the 80s and 90s, this man will have come across your screen once or twice. Starring in shows like Taxi and Who's the Boss, Tony dominated the sitcom scene for a solid portion of his career. Earlier this year, at the Broadway premiere of New York, an interviewer named Rye Myers asked Tony a question about New York that left Danza branded as one of the rudest celebrities in the world. He was simply asking Tony what his favorite NYC staple food was. Pizza, hot dogs, what makes Tony tick? Instead of answering the rather simple question and just moving on, he took a moment to pause and tell Rye that he should get better questions, and even told him to relax. The clip went viral and people quickly began supporting Myers. Even the great Michael Bublé chimed in to let him know that he loved him and was ready to share a pizza with him at any time if Tony wasn't invited. Tony actually reached out later on and apologized for his response, deciding that he ultimately wanted to squash the beef. Things were patched up, but that is still an extremely rude and awkward moment. Number 4, Doja Cat. The Met Gala always seems to bring in some truly memorable moments, whether it's an outlandish outfit or an interview where they just meow the entire time. It's a weird place to be. Yes, Doja Cat went to the Met Gala in 2023 dressed as a cat. She literally had prosthetic nose on her face and prosthetics on her eyebrows, all the while wearing a sparkly silver dress with little sparkly ears on top. Emma Chamberlain decided that Doja was the woman that she needed to interview. No one else. Doja Cat was the one, which ended up being a very bad decision. Bad for her, great for us. Doja responded to every single question that this woman asked with a resounding meow. At one point, she actually attempts to tell a story in meows a few times with different tones, like meow, meow, meow. The entire time, the guy who is standing with her is just kind of like, yeah, that's Doja Cat. She's been doing this for a month now. The moment was honestly more entertaining than rude, but I'm not sure if this was planned beforehand or not. If it was, great meme, good job. If it's not, this is horrible, and Doja, you need to chill. Number 3, Liam Neeson. Liam may be known for his serious roles and for being, one of the worst parents in cinematic history, but this year he was known as an uncomfortable man thanks to his appearance on the show The View. Appearing to discuss his career and potential projects coming down the line, the conversation shifted after one of the hosts, Anna Navarro, jabbed Joy Behar about her crush on Liam Neeson, saying that there was at least one woman on this panel that would love to be taken by Liam. Ew. The show then played a supercut of all the times that Joy has spoken about Liam, including a time when she said that she would want to have her ashes sprinkled over him, and another bit where she admitted to getting a little aroused when she saw him on screen. Liam joked at first, asking Joy if she received the checks, insinuating that she gets paid every time she talks about him. Following the interview, Liam felt the whole thing to be a little bit of a waste of time. The segment about the crush was long and is a crush that materialized like 15 years ago. Eventually, he had a normal conversation conversation, but overall it was just a little uncomfortable. Number 2, Chloe Fineman. For anyone who does not know Chloe Fineman, I'm sorry. She is currently working as a cast member on Saturday Night Live, and she's genuinely doing a great job and is hilarious. Fortunately, earlier this year, she was involved in a red carpet interview that proved how little she actually knew about some of the celebrities involved with the event she was at. Fineman hosted the Vogue live stream of the 2023 Met Gala alongside Derek Blasberg. The pair were eventually joined by Aubrey Plaza, Madeline Klein, the designer of many dresses from the evening, and Stella McCartney. As the interview began, Fineman attempts to introduce the women that she's interviewing but fumbles all of their names, one of them on purpose. Instead of calling them by their first names, she refers to Madeline and Stella as McCartney and Klein. She then calls Aubrey Plaza Audrey, and Plaza improvised her own last name, Slutburn, which may have to be bleeped out, but I really hope it's not. Chloe and Aubrey actually know each other very well and have worked together a few times. Chloe and Aubrey actually know each other really well, and they've worked together a few times in the past, so this was clearly just an inside joke. McCartney was having none of these shenanigans though. Chloe instinctively laughed when someone makes a joke, so when the women kept responding to the questions, "What are you wearing?" with each other's last names, she had to giggle. McCartney asked her if she was taking this seriously, and the tension dissipated only when she asked McCartney about taking over for Karl Lagerfeld, the designer that the night had been themed after. Yeah, I don't know how to say his last name, please don't comment about it. The moment was tense, and we're sure Chloe was happy to get back to world of sketch comedy as soon as possible. And at number 1, Jada Pinkett Smith. Every single interview that this woman has ever done has had some kind of shade or hidden meaning behind it, whether it's trying to patch things up with someone on her own little Facebook talk show that hurt her, or just telling the world every single dirty detail about Will Smith that she knows. This woman is a menace who makes for uncomfortable interviews and moments every time she is on screen. This year alone, she outed her marriage as a sham, claimed Tupac Shakur was in love with her, and wrote a book about everything in between. Don't buy it.
Starting off our list today at number 10, we have Isaac Mizrahi. While Isaac Mizrahi was acting as an interviewer for E! On the red carpet for the Golden Globes, he would have a troubling interview with Scarlett Johansson. Scarlett, who was attending as a supporting actress nominee for Match Point, would be left feeling shocked after Isaac decided to touch her chest in the interview because he wanted to know if the actress had a bra under her stunning red dress. As he gave it a quick squeeze, he would then say, "I'm just taking notes for next time I make a..." Then he would be cut off by Scarlett, who said, "What is going on?" And then she said, "Absolutely, take all the notes you want." The actress then later said, "Oh my god." While Isaac did later apologize for offending anyone, the Academy of Motion Pictures of Arts then had to issue their own statement when they said, "I can predict we would be extraordinary angry if that happened on our red carpet. I cannot predict what we would do afterwards." Number 9, Kesha. Remember that time when Jerry Seinfeld savagely refused to hug Kesha during a red carpet interview? Not once, not twice, but 3 painful times. It was truly the stuff of nightmares, but watching it from the comfort of our own homes made for some great laughs. Although Kesha was silent about the issue for some time, she would come out in 2017 to break the silence on what happened after she rudely interrupted Jerry in an interview to ask him for a hug. Jerry would then later sit down for an interview with AJ Calloway, where he explained that he didn't hug Kesha because he simply didn't know her and admitted, "I'm 63. I don't know every pop star. I have to meet someone to say hello. Gotta start somewhere." For Kesha's part, she remained pretty quiet on the whole issue as she was presumably recovering from all the overwhelming embarrassment of being rejected so publicly like that. However, a day after the video went viral, she did post an Instagram photo of her cat with some pretty suggestive hashtags. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and, subscribe to the channel. Coming number 8, we have Tommy Lee Jones. When Joan and Melissa Rivers were asked who their least favorite person to interview on the red carpet was, they didn't have to think twice before responding, and they both ended up saying Tommy Lee Jones. In 2013, HuffPost Live asked the famous mother and daughter duo about their worst celebrity interview, and Melissa immediately said Tommy Lee Jones, to which Joan responded by saying, "Oh, without a question." did. HuffPost then went on to ask the pair to elaborate on the assertion, to which Melissa went on to know he's at the top of everybody's list. He doesn't want to be there, he's unhappy doing the red carpet, and he's going to make everyone else around him just as unhappy in the experience. Joan then would go on to sum up the issue nicely by saying, Jones went to Harvard and is very impressed by that accomplishment. She then went on to say, we all went to Ivy League schools, calm down. Number 7, John Travolta. In 2015, John Travolta once again became the talk of the Oscars after he had a pretty off encounter with Scarlett Johansson that had some of us scratching our heads. Scarlett, who co-starred with John in the film A Love Story for Bobby Long, told the Associated Press that the picture of him kissing her on the red carpet was taken out of context. She then went on to say there is nothing strange, creepy, or inappropriate about John Travolta. The image that is circulating is unfortunate, still framed from a live action encounter that was a very sweet and total welcome. She then went on to add that the photo did not reflect the live moment and that we were all being misguided and misinformed, and that she hadn't seen John in some years and it was always a pleasure to be greeted by him, yet her face in the photo said otherwise. Number 6, Ryan Seacrest. In 2019, Grammy viewers would slam Ryan Seacrest for his awkward Lady Gaga red carpet interview. When Ryan tried to interview the superstar, he didn't so much ask her questions as he just chose to speak to her. And when Lady Gaga did try to speak, Ryan would just end up cutting her off without even giving her the chance to speak properly. He then went on to tell her that she should be performing at the Oscars, for which she is a multiple nominee for, and she responded by saying, that was like, answer my question, but I'm not asking one. Ryan then tried to recover from the interview, but then made an awkward joke about him not asking her questions before saying they were cutting to break. Gaga was a good sport in handling the awkward interview, playing along with his joke that carried on for way too long as there was a delay in going to the advertisements. Before the interview was over, she did pull a host of awkward faces before eventually hugging Ryan and leaving. Number 5, David Lee Roth. In 2019, David Lee Roth had a pretty bizarre red carpet interview that taught us all that you can either wear all sorts of outlandish things or nothing, and you can also be as provocative as you want in the name of artistry, and flaunt your questionable decisions all over social media. The king of being completely insane during the red carpet interview will always go to David Lee Roth. David, who was set to perform at the Billboard Music Awards, was being interviewed by E! on the red carpet special. During the interview, he would start out on solid footing, discussing Van Halen's dance influence and how what they did in the 80s has informed today's pop music, which was okay. But things took a quick turn when he decided to quickly go off the rails, and somehow West Side Story, Lowriders, and David's abundance of black and Hispanic friends all came up. The whole interview was just him inspiring to get on Miley's level of interviews, and it was just completely weird. Go give it a watch. Number 4, Tiffany Haddish. When Entertainment Tonight's Lauren Zima seemed to have accidentally called Tiffany Haddish's new Oscar after party dress a costume change, things quickly went south, and when Tiffany fired back at Lauren saying, I'm not wearing a costume, I'm wearing Dolce & Gabbana, the actress was clearly not done firing back at the reporter when she then went on to educate her on costumes and outfits by saying, it's called an evening gown, darling. No one is paying for this. I paid for it. It's custom. Thank you. That's when the reporter jokingly announced it was her time to pass away, pretended to faint in an attempt to ease the tension, and Tiffany's response, may I add, was, this is what fame looks like, this is what success looks like, this is what money looks like, and yeah, the moment is just as brutal to watch as you would expect. And take notes, because if it's not Halloween, it's not a costume, and you definitely don't want to make the same mistake unless you want to be embarrassed on the red carpet by some of Hollywood's biggest stars. Coming number 3, we have Jack Harlow. Jack Harlow once left Emma Chamberlain in a pretty awkward red carpet interview. That became one of the most hilarious and viral moments of 2022 when Emma, who is a big YouTuber, was interviewing Jack Harlow for Vogue. What started off as a pretty interesting interview would then randomly turn a different way when Jack decided out of nowhere that he was going to hit her with a totally random love you, and then he quickly turned away and left the interview. Now you're probably wondering what happened next. Well, as the rapper walked away, the camera would zoom in on Emma and it would give us a glorious image of her staring into space and questioning her entire reality, which was honestly a 10 out of 10 reaction, but considering their age difference, the gesture was just completely weird. Number 2, we have Sutton Strachey. Okay, we all know that there's no one more dramatic than the Real Housewives cast, as they always seem to do shady things at the most random times. Like the time Sutton Strachey showed up to the People's Choice Awards in 2022, and just like the show, she brought some drama. When the interviewer asked her if she would like Lisa to return to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, the reality TV personality definitely didn't have anything nice to say. She then chose to look at the reporter in the camera in total silence, and she stayed like this until the reporter moved on to the next question. It was a question she actually wanted to respond to. The reporter then went on to the next question by saying anyways. But just before, if you caught a look at Sutton, you would see that she was baffled and she looked pretty mean and scary, to the point it would have caused any reporter to end the interview and move on to the next star. It's safe to say that Sutton doesn't really like Lisa and doesn't want her to return to the show anytime soon. And coming at number 1 today, we have Sacha Baron Cohen. When he showed up to the red carpet dressed as his character from The Dictator, his look was completely pushing boundaries as he proceeded on the red carpet accompanied by female bodyguards and an urn which he stated was filled with Kim Jong-un's ashes. While the whole interview and actions were very off-putting and not really professional, things took a quick turn to the worst when he decided to accidentally dump the material all over Ryan Seacrest's Burberry tux. While everyone was shocked at what actually happened, Ryan Seacrest actually showed the world what a true professional he is, and he brushed it off. And he brushed it off quite literally, may I add. But still, the interview was pretty disturbing, and Sasha shouldn't be playing sensitive games like that.
Number 10, John Mayer. John may be known for spending time with the ladies, but it's not all peaches and cream. The musician was doing an interview with Playboy magazine in 2010, and now I know it involves Playboy, who are notoriously provocative, but even they thought this interview was just a bit too much. John gets into some pretty graphic depictions of things that he wanted to do to Jessica Simpson, using language that cannot be repeated online. He then ventures off the physical intimacy side of things and instead begins to speak about his, and I quote, hood pass, claiming that he had become so popular among black people that he could get away with anything he wanted. And then he called it an N-word pass. Following the interview, fans were beyond upset at his behavior and his attitude towards women. Many turned on John, making a massive dent in his career. Nowadays, this is one of the only things John is remembered for. Well, that and Your Body is a Wonderland, because it's a pretty catchy song. Number 9, Paris Hilton. Paris is the originator of the phrase famous for being famous. This woman made headlines many times over the years for a little bit of everything. In 2011, Paris appeared on ABC to discuss her career, personal life, and the recent situations that she had been dealing with involving stalkers. During the interview, she revealed a few things about her life that had previously been speculated, like the fact that she used a higher-pitched baby voice on the show Simple Life, but in real life had a much deeper and more serious tone. But the conversation eventually ventures into uncharted waters. The interviewer asked Paris if she felt that her former friend and protege Kim Kardashian had overshadowed her in the eyes of the media. Paris says nothing, looks to her publicist, and goes to stand up. They almost wrapped the interview entirely, but eventually things simmered down and they were able to clear things up. However, the moment stuck with fans of Hilton immediately and begged the question, why is she so uncomfortable to talk about this, and is it because it's true? Well, it turns out that the world answered that question for her, as Kim's show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, made it big, and Paris Hilton's show was cancelled after one season. Number 8, Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, known for his hilarious personality on and off screen, gave Kat Sadler from E! News and Daily Pop an awkward interview on the red carpet at Harper's Bazaar party in 2017. The interaction started with Jim slowly circling Kat as she attempts to express her confusion and excitement that Jim Carrey was at a Fashion Week event. Was this man known for being an incredible artist, bringing his talents to the fashion world? No, he was just in a mood. By 2017, Jim had made a name for himself as an oddly serious guy who tended to venture into the realm of energies and universal concepts when he started getting into deep conversations. He started the conversation with, "This is meaningless," and then he continued to say that he wanted to find the most meaningless thing that he could attend that night. The event was a celebration of icons and celebrities, according to Kat, to which Jim said he did not agree, as in he didn't agree with the concept of icons or celebrities. He continued continues to give a small speech about not believing that people are actually real and that we're a field of energy and that peace lies beyond personality. Sorry, I'm feeling woozy just talking about it. The entire time this interview is taking place, Kat is visibly uncomfortable, just counting down the moment that Jim says something funny or even remotely related to fashion. Instead, he just shares his thoughts, tells her that she has a nice fragrance, and then he walks away. While Jim's career had already started to slow down at that point, the clip became viral and studios were wondering if he was a good fit for any role anymore. Many scripts with his name on it were then rewritten or simply kept to themselves, right up until 2020 when he made a small comeback in the surprisingly fun movie Sonic the Hedgehog. Number 7. Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin is a very eccentric man, and he's genuinely a really just wonderful performer. Her is a weird dramatic movie that everyone should definitely see at least once. While doing press for a film in 2009, Joaquin was making an appearance on the David Letterman show when David noticed the actor had drastically changed since his last appearance on The Tonight Show. He was wearing sunglasses, he had spawned a big beard and long hair, and it sounded like he was chewing gum the entire time. When David asked Joaquin if he was doing alright, he responded with a muffled, "Yeah, I'm okay," in grand Joaquin fashion. This pattern continued as David goes over his accolades and discusses the announcement Joaquin had made a few weeks prior that he was quitting the acting world forever. It turns out that he was planning to shift his focus into the music world, specifically hip-hop, wishing to be a rapper. Does that make sense? After roughly 10 minutes of screen time, the interview wraps up with sarcasm and a clip from his new film, Two Lovers. Following the interview, many were concerned that Joaquin was maybe under the influence of something, or maybe just he was under anesthesia because he was so quiet and dark and anyway. But it turns out that he was attempting to perform a spoof. According to Joaquin, the entire incident was staged to promote another film that was in the works called I'm Still Here, where the character in the film acts in a very similar manner. Despite the reveal of this being a staged interview, it only made Joaquin look like a wacky whack job. Number 6. Megan Fox. Megan has been featured in several films over the years, but it was an interview about her time working with Michael Bay on the Transformers set that canceled her for good. The original live-action Transformers movie came out in 2007 and co-starred Megan and Shia LaBeouf in the leading roles. Now, it was a fun movie on screen, but behind the scenes there was a ton of tension. According to Megan, who had previously worked with Michael on Bad Boys 2, working with Michael was like working for Schmittler. Fun fact, if you put sh in front of someone's name, you can say it online. Loophole. Of course, Michael didn't appreciate being compared to one of the worst men in human history, so many speculated that her being left out of the third movie may have had something to do with the behind-the-scenes drama. She went on to call him bland and claiming that he had no personality or social skills of any kind, which is just rude. When the comments were made public, her career began to slowly suffer. Not only was she written out of the Transformers series, but she was forced to make a public apology and retracted the statements following the massive slew of Backlash. She took a few years off, but Michael himself later acknowledged the missteps on both their parts and not only accepted the retraction, but the pair were able to patch things up and work together on the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies. Awesome! Number 5. Jesse Eisenberg. Jesse may not be the busiest bee that he once was, but that's probably because when he's off camera, he's a little stingy with the details. While doing an interview with Romina Puga for her online series Say My Name, Jesse was promoting his new film, Now You See Me. From the moment the camera rolls, Jesse is just obviously annoyed with the situation and with Romina herself. When she refers to Morgan Freeman as Freeman, he asks if she's on like a baseball team with him or something. What's wrong with referring to someone by their last name, huh? Eisenberg continued to poke fun at Romina as she attempted to do some sleight of hand magic, accidentally revealing some scribbles written on her palm. Jesse berates her for being so forgetful that she had to write things down on her hand and then asks her not to refer to Morgan Freeman as Freeman again. When she asks Eisenberg to do a card trick, he learned on set he compared Romina to the comedian Carrot Top, who's universally panned as a terrible comedian. If you're watching this, I'm really sorry, Carrot Top. Also, Carrot Top watches my videos? When the trick is done, Romina doesn't play along, further frustrating Jesse beyond belief. What's funny about this interview is it actually impacted both people involved. While Jesse continues to work, it's in a much smaller capacity, and his hits are few and far between. Meanwhile, Romina received lots of flack for delivering such a bad interview that she eventually stopped doing the show altogether. Number 4. David Letterman. Now, David Letterman has been around for a long time, and while he did eventually get replaced with Stephen Colbert, it was after many years of being extremely odd towards his female guests. There are several examples over the years of David being just a little bit too intimate with his guests, including a time when he would not stop telling Jennifer Aniston how good her legs looked in her dress. He literally told Madonna to go kiss a man in the audience. He called Keira Knightley a lovely offering. He told Dolly Parton that he wanted to see her sweaty. The list goes on. It took way too long for someone to realize that this man was just a bit too open at times, sharing way too much information. One thing he continued to do right up until he retired in 2014 was show revealing or intimate photos of his guests without their knowledge. Like when Emma Watson was forced to explain a wardrobe malfunction after David pulled out a photo from a recent red carpet event. He brushed people's hair, he made dirty jokes, and seriously, this dude was obsessed with legs. In fact, one of the last interviews to ever take place on the show with him was with Jennifer Aniston, and he just sat there complimenting her looks for basically the entire thing. While his career was never destroyed, I thought that it would be worth a mention because this is a list of people who have done some scummy stuff on the air, and David is no exception. Number 3, Robert Pattinson. Now, I will be using the term destroyed loosely here, as this incident did destroy his reputation, but he was eventually able to make a comeback. In 2018, while promoting the Twilight sequel New Moon, Robert made an appearance on the Tyra Banks show alongside his co-star Taylor Lautner. Now, things are going smooth until something takes Tyra over. She tells Robert that she wants him to bite her right on the neck, like a vampire. Well, Rob hesitates for about 3 seconds and then chomps down on Tyra for a moment. The clip is lighthearted and Tyra is fueled with joy, but according to members of the production team, Summit Entertainment was not happy. Robert was scalded by the director and his team of agents who had not given Robert the green light to bite a woman's neck on television even if she literally asked him to do it. This caused a lot of personal issues for the people on the Twilight team, as they wanted their film to be seen as a serious dramatic piece, yet Robert was playing vampire for fun with Tyra Banks. As I said, this interview did impact his career, but in a different way. As the Twilight movies continued, Robert was offered small roles here and there, but thanks to this interview with Tyra, he was no longer some young-faced actor the studio could just manipulate. He was Robert. His career eventually picked up outside of the young adult book world, and he is now a very bankable man in Hollywood. Number 2, Katherine Heigl. Kathy was riding high back in 2007. The former Grey's Anatomy star not only won an Emmy for Best Supporting Actress in a Dramatic Series, but she also began transitioning into the big screen with the success of her first feature comedy, Knocked Up, alongside comedy legend Seth Rogen. Unfortunately, her rise to the tippy top quickly became a free fall into a volcano, following an ill-fated Vanity Fair interview in 2008. In the interview, Katherine made a move that still has people scratching their heads to this day. She openly bashed the film that made her famous, claiming that it painted women as shrew, humorless, and uptight, while also placing blame on Seth Rogen for writing the men as lovable, goofy, and fun. The film still sits at an impressive 89% on Rotten Tomatoes because while she may claim that the project was problematic, the final product was actually a really fun love story filled with some solid jokes, performances, and a great story at its core. Seth felt betrayed by the comments as they never had a fight on set, and it never seemed like she was uncomfortable at any point. These comments, combined with some negativity towards her Grey's Anatomy writers, caused her agents to drop her as a client, and her time in Hollywood quickly came to a screeching halt. And at number 1, Kanye West. Kanye was slowly going mad in the eyes of the public way back in 2010. As the years went by, he made more and more appearances on TV, but it wasn't until 2018 where his political beliefs got him heated on Jimmy Kimmel Live. When Jimmy asked Kanye how he felt about the response to his decree that he was all for President at the time Donald Trump, he was largely criticized. He defends his statements by claiming that he did not have to conform to some united mindset and that he was a little bit upset at the backlash, but that a part of him kind of enjoyed the hate. He then suggested that the world was in a simulation, claiming that it's filled with unpaid actors. The over 20-minute interview is filled with metaphors, the concept of love, and a comparison of himself to the Son of God. This interview was only a short time after his anti-Semitic tweets were circulating the internet. He even makes a joke about the anxiety of asking his publicist to appear on the show. He was fairly calm in his delivery of his opinions, but he made sure his opinions were known.